there is a delay tactics on the part of the Union of India, because I think that in the heart of hearts, MHA and the people who have detained him, they know that it is a wrongful detention. Detaining Sonam is more for battle of nerves. The lull before the storm is always dangerous. Sonam did not sit for anshans or go for padyatras for any personal cause. His fight was for Ladakh, and he has been detained so that he can be silenced. Sonam's release is crucial. It was definitely not going to be violent if the government had used softer hand. There was no need to shoot people in the heart or in the head. I would squarely put the blame on the way government handled it. फानूस बनकर हिफाजत जिसकी खुदा करे वो शमा क्या बुझे जिसे रोशन खुदा करे. So if you are having the protection and the grace, then nothing can touch you. For the initial 10-11 days, I had no clue where Sonam was. So that was a very scary time, because I thought maybe they are also beating him up. I agree that they got played in the hands of the government. Knowing this government, I know that they only understand strength and power. You know, if you cow down to them, they can really, just squeeze you and throw you out. I was being followed and my phone was tapped. The IT cell of the BJP and all, they, I think, believe in that a lie repeated many times becomes the truth. People should be able to see the fake narratives that are being spread about us and about him and about Ladakh. Sonam is not a radical, person who does not see the other point of view. So if the government has reasons for how and why statehood is not possible, or why a sixth schedule, or this is not possible, I'm sure he is somebody who would find via media come to a solution which is as a stepping stone.
Welcome back to HT's weekly talk show, The Interview. First and foremost, let me wish our viewers a very happy new year. Our viewers who have kept us going in every sense of the term. So here we are, back again after a break with interesting editions week after week. Sonam Wangchuk, climate activist and a crusader for the people in Ladakh. But for the government, he is an accused and anti-national. He was arrested under the National Security Act in September last year. It is a witch hunt, a politically motivated witch hunt. He is being treated like a criminal. They want to kill the spirit of my husband and all the causes he stands for, says Gitanjali Angmo, who is running from pillar to post to see Sonam Wangchuk out of jail. It has been a long haul, but Gitanjali is not giving up. She will do what it takes to get justice for her husband. We have her here with us to speak about the anguish, the pain, and the injustice meted out as she questions the government's motives and demands her husband's unconditional release. Treat him with dignity and respect, she says. Gitanjali Angmo here with us in this edition of HT's weekly talk show, The Interview. Welcome to the show, Gitanjali Angmo, and thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Let me begin with the court hearings. You have just come out of one, but it seems to be date after date. What is your take, and is hope still alive?
Yeah, hope is definitely alive, but unfortunately our judiciary is designed this way. It tends to be like tariq pe tariq, as it is said, but I'm told that in our case, we are getting dates much faster than other cases are.
Is that right? Because he's been in jail since September.
September, yes. So I was told that in the Supreme Court, you get the next date maybe after 4 weeks or 6 weeks. So from that point of view, getting it in a week or in a fortnight is supposedly faster. But I still think that for a person who is wrongly detained, and 100 days in the jail is a very long time, and this is such an open and shut case that it should have been disposed of maximum in 30 days. And the last 2-3 dates, it was just because the Solicitor General of India didn't turn up or he asked for time.
Do you think there is a delay tactic on part of somebody?
Yes, there is a delay tactics on the part of the Union of India, because I think that in the heart of hearts, not just the Solicitor General of India, not just the judges, even the MHA and the people who have detained him, if they were to look into their conscience, they know that it is a wrongful detention. So definitely there is a delay tactics on the part of the Solicitor General of India.
Is patience running out?
No, I mean, the name of the game is patience and resilience. Detaining Sonam is more for battle of nerves, and the only way to beat or to win is to not let patience run out.
You know, when Sonam Wangchuk was arrested, there was a hue and cry. Do you think that sentiment is on the decline and people have moved on in Ladakh?
On the contrary, not just in Ladakh but for the whole of India, it's amazing to see the kind of rallying, for Sonam Wangchuk that's happening.
I was going to come to the Dehradun rally later,
Yes.
but in Ladakh, do you think the sentiment has waned?
It hasn't, because there is fear tactics being deployed. So after the 24th incident, there was an internet blackout for almost a month, and then there were arrests and there were curfews, and even today, those of Ladakhis who voice their opinions are being taken to the police custody, are being questioned, are being arrested. So there is an atmosphere of fear. So there is a tactics used to keep Ladakhis quiet. So it may appear that nobody is, but everybody is rooting for Sonam, for Ladakh, for justice. It's not died down, it's very much there. And it's scary that it's still there, because the lull before the storm is always dangerous. And that is why the sooner this problem is addressed and not allowed to fester, the better for everybody.
When you say this problem, are you talking about the 6th schedule and statehood, or are you talking about Sonam being out of jail?
It's all related. So Sonam did not sit for anshans or go for padyatras for any personal cause. His fight was for Ladakh, and he has been detained so that he can be silenced. So the problem that Sonam stands for is the problem of not fulfilling the promises that government made to Ladakh, for betraying the people of Ladakh, for having won an election on the manifesto that we will give you 6th schedule and statehood, and then going back on it. The solution is not to just detain somebody or silence others or to employ fear tactics. It is to explain that if you're not giving it for the last 6 years, why not? Is there a way that we can come to a solution and to resolve it as soon as possible? And it's all linked. Releasing Sonam, having the talks done, and not betraying the people but giving to them what is lawfully theirs and from whom they had won the mandate in the elections.
In that order?
Yes, I would say so, because Sonam's release is crucial, and the justice to the 4 people who were killed is crucial. All of these things have resulted in a trust deficit. So there has to be a bridging of this deficit, this trust deficit, and confidence building before the talks can happen. So yes, in that order.
So you're saying this is a substantive issue rather than a personal sentiment?
Definitely, yeah. We were denied the FCRA license. We came to know that the MHA directly called a lot of PSUs who want to support us and told them not to support us. So we were fine with it, because we don't want to take the government on for our petty personal issues. But this is for Ladakh, and development in this area, or whatever is done in the future, policies that are made for it, has to have the representation of the people and not just with the profits or electoral benefits in mind.
I will come to the falling out with BJP a little later, but you mentioned about people being affected and coming out on the streets all over India by his arrest. And in that context, let me ask you, in Dehradun, lots of people took to the streets, they chanted slogans. Do you think the same would have happened in Ladakh, where the fear psychosis which you talk about was not there?
Of course, and I would like to add that it was not just Dehradun, but many cities, including cities in Maharashtra, in Bangalore, where people came and demonstrated their support for Sonam and asked for his release. And Ladakh also, after a couple of weeks, they had announced a peaceful protest. And the co-chair of Apex body, Mr. Lagruk, was almost kept under house arrest when that had to happen. Ladakh would have been very different if people had the freedom to express what they are actually feeling about the situation, if they were not artificially being, scared into submission.
So do you feel there would have been more protests, there would have been more unrest? Is that what you're saying?
So protest and unrest don't go together in the context of Ladakh. Yes, there would have been protests, but like always, peaceful protests. Even the 24th September started out as a peaceful protest.
And then turned violent.
It escalated because of what the CRPF did. It first opened tear gas and then it started shooting and firing, and it upset the people because they were already betrayed by not having been given employment as promised, not having been given protection, legislature as promised. And then on top of that, you use, might and force. Protests in Ladakh have always been peaceful. If there's a case study done in Harvard, it could be a case study in how, peaceful Gandhian protests still work in the 21st century.
Or don't work.
I think they would work still. It's not the end game.
But don't you think there is a very thin dividing line between peaceful protests and protests, and that somehow panned out in Ladakh, while it did start as what you are calling, and others have said, a peaceful protest, actually turned violent?
It was definitely not going to be violent if the government had used,
restraint,
softer hand to, even if they had to control the situation, let's say whatever minor thing erupted, there was no need to shoot people in the heart or in the head. Why that? Why do you shoot your own people? You could have brought the thing under control through many other means. So I would squarely put the blame on the way government handled it.
Mishandled it.
Manhandled it or mishandled it.
You mentioned His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He has been strangely silent during all this. Don't you think he could have used his good offices to prevail on the government for Sonam and the big picture of solving the situation in Ladakh?
Actually, he is a spiritual giant and I am nobody to comment on his approach. But the positive impact that he has on the people of Ladakh and wherever he visits is tremendous. I'm sure he's doing what is best for everybody.
You appealed to the President of India and sought Sonam's release and justice for Sonam. Did you approach the Dalai Lama? And if not, why not?
I think it is a political and a legal matter. In this case, the ball was in the court of the Prime Minister, the President and the Home Minister and the DC and the LG of Ladakh. So they were approached before we went ahead to file the habeas corpus in the Supreme Court.
Let me ask you, at a personal level, with all that's been happening, you were being followed, do you fear for your life? And do you fear for Sonam's safety in jail?
Actually not. No, I don't fear for my life. I trust and have full faith in the divine. And if I may use that shairi in Hindi, so फानूस बनकर हिफाजत जिसकी खुदा करे वो शमा क्या बुझे जिसे रोशन खुदा करे. So if you are having the protection and the grace, then nothing can touch you. And even if you die for a cause that you believe in, what better death than that? So both Sonam and I, we don't fear for our death. We are careful. We don't want to waste our lives. But it's not that people can, scare us to submission because our lives are in danger. And I think that's what makes you the dangerous person in the room. That you have a mind of your own and you don't fear death.
As a wife, do you spend sleepless nights worrying about Sonam's safety in jail? While I respect this philosophy, but at the same time, as a wife, do you have that fear?
No, initially I did fear that because this was an experience I was having for the first time in my life. I had never has anybody close, a family member, been in jail or detained. So it was a very new experience. And parallelly, my colleagues who were also jailed in Ladakh were being beaten up and they had been hospitalized. And for the initial 10-11 days, I had no clue where Sonam was. So that was a very scary time because I thought maybe they are also beating him up. And so when for the first time I met him on the 7th of October, and I found he was in one piece, and I was very relieved. And then I think the jail authorities have been very good to him. You can't have all the comforts, but he doesn't have a bed, for instance. He didn't have a watch for many days.
And that's when he asked you for a sundial.
Yeah, because they don't allow anything mechanical or any battery operated stuff. But I finally negotiated and managed to have a wall clock put on in his room.
You didn't take the sundial that he asked for?
I was trying to get a DIY which he could make and do, and I'm still looking for it, which I would take when I visit him next.
What about the book of ants which he has asked you for, on a lighter note?
So he's a very curious person. There were a lot of ants in his room, and I think he was watching their behavior and how the camaraderie that they have, the team spirit. So he wanted to study about it, but I have yet not come across a book which I could take for him.
Back to the apex body, it did not make Sonam's release a precondition for talks, though it did raise that issue and said Sonam, along with the others who've been arrested, should be released. They did not use the pressure on the government, which they should have when it came to Sonam. What do you make of that?
Yeah, so I agree that they got played in the hands of the government. Because if they had stood their ground and said that unless everybody is released and Sonam is released, then that would have been personally for me. I may be very naive. I'm sure that the leaders of apex body know best what they've done, and maybe in their wisdom this was the best approach, that parallelly if talks happened then maybe things would come back to normalcy. But knowing this government, I know that they only understand strength and power. If you cow down to them, they can really, just squeeze you and throw you out. To me, and I'm being very candid here, I would have
not caved in
and would have made that a precondition.
Are you disappointed?
No, I think you can't control the cards that are dealt out to you. You can only make the best of what has happened. I truly believe the philosophy of the Upanishads and the Gita, that there is the hand of the divine in everything. The divine is not here to solve our problems. He is here to help us evolve. There are never any regrets that I have. There are only lessons and learnings.
How much have Sonam in jail and you outside evolved with this bitter experience? What are the lessons learned and what are the lessons unlearned? And what are the things which you would do differently perhaps, or at least ask Sonam to do differently?
So the silver lining of this episode has been the tremendous trust and respect that we have developed for each other, and especially Sonam for track that I took and the strategy that I adopted.
Which is?
Every time when I would go to meet him, we take a sheet of paper so that you don't forget, because 1 hour just goes. initially I came out and I said, oh, I should have said that and I should have said that. And on many occasions, what he has written that I should be doing, I have already done it in that week. We never had a plan. There were rumors that he might be taken in, but that it would happen so suddenly, it came as a shock. So we did not have any plan of if that happened to him, what should I do or others do. So simple things like, should I file a habeas corpus in the Supreme Court? Should I talk to media? Should I be quiet? So I was completely in the dark. His brother, who had met him before me, and he said that I've been talking to media and it's good. I was being followed and my phone was tapped. I had to literally incognito run away from Ladakh because there was, I was feeling this house arrest kind of a situation they had done for me. They were not letting media to meet me, and there were like 20 CRPFs in 4 posts just outside a university. So it did not feel normal. It was a scary situation and it was designed to curtail my movement. After he was detained, there was a one-sided press conference after press conference by the UT of Ladakh and all, going hammer and tongues at Sonam, at all of us at a personal level. It was commonsensical for me to, defend yourself and tell the world your side of the story. And that's what the IT cell of the BJP and all, I think, believe in that a lie repeated many times becomes the truth. So the truth had to be told. And so he was very happy that I had, kept this thing alive, and I had, as much as possible, people should know the truth and should be able to see the fake narratives that are being spread about us and about him and about Ladakh.
While on the brother, apparently when you moved court to say you're not being allowed to meet Sonam, he had met him a day earlier, and that is what the opposing counsel said. Is the family, or was the family at that point, working in different directions?
Actually, no. They got a call from somebody that you can go and meet. And then they said that we have got this call. Then I said, please ask them to give it in writing. I did not know if that was again a ploy to, detain me or whatever. Only after we had filed the habeas corpus on October 2nd, the 3rd October evening is when they got the mail. Because they had got the call, they decided to go ahead. And but there was nobody like working at Crossroads. It was such a confusion. For the last 2 weeks, I had to be out of Delhi because, as I told you, we have these organizations and we had to file for the returns and all of that. And so the eldest brother and his wife, they offered to move to Jaipur. So they have stationed themselves there for 2 months so that they can meet him while I can be away. And in these 2 weeks, the rest of the family has gone and met him.
So the family is not at cross purposes?
Not at all. Not at all. There is no reason for working at cross purposes because everybody wants the best of Sonam and the best of Ladakh to happen. And we are all on the same page. Sometimes it's the approach that may differ a bit. Whatever little lack of communication may have happened initially has now been very, successfully resolved, and everybody is very much together.
But tell me, one of his brothers is in the BJP. Is he helping? And if yes, what has he done or used his good offices with the powers that be? Has he done anything, or does he want to be in a leave me alone situation?
So he is with the BJP and he was a councillor before, but he does not hold any office right now.
But he surely has some influence.
I don't think anybody has influence on the MHA,
Has he made efforts?
I'm sure he must have done his best, but I think it is beyond everybody's powers to change or enable change on the ground.
Because this is one angst with Sonam supporters. that here is your brother who's in the BJP, who knows people, even if he doesn't or cannot exert that kind of influence, and he's done very little. How do you react to that? And do you think more needed to be done?
I'm sure that at his level, he must have done his best, because the love for a brother overrides any party politics.
Has he tried? Are you aware? Because you're using the word "I'm sure," which means that either he has not tried and you're trying to play it down, or you don't know.
We haven't discussed it, so I don't know, but one would definitely do it. If it were me and my sibling was detained, I would do it.
In this context, let me ask you, are you fighting a lone battle? In one sense, you're pitched against the government, you're pitched against the powers that be, and as I see it, you're the only one fighting.
I think each one has a role to play. Even they contribute to stand and stare, as they say. So some are praying for this and they are contributing. Some are, wishing us well and they are contributing. I seem to be chosen to be the person who is out here to be fighting, and I am playing my part. I may appear to be alone, but I am not lonely. I have the support of everybody in Ladakh. The cab driver who seems to know of the case and says कि ये sir के साथ नहीं होना चाहिए था. My institution, you inviting me for this and taking our voice to every nook and corner.
Your husband has said, and I quote, "I stand firmly with Epic's body and the people of Ladakh in their demand for 6th schedule and statehood." While Chering Dorje Lakruk had once said to me in an earlier interview that in case the government does not agree to a statehood, we may have to climb down. Do you think your husband would go along with that climb down?
That's a good question. See, statehood is, everybody knows that it is not an easy process. And from a hill council to a state, in most of the places where it has happened, it has gone through a legislature, UT with legislature. It can be seen as a stepping stone towards statehood, if that is what would be what is feasible right now. But the point is, it has to be discussed. Sonam is not a radical, person who does not see the other point of view. So if the government has reasons for how and why statehood is not possible, or why a 6th schedule, or this is not possible, I'm sure he is somebody who would find via media to come to a solution which is as a stepping stone for the final outcome, which could be a few years later.
So he would be open to a so-called climb down if it has to come.
And he would not see it as a climb down, he would see as a stepping stone, because the process of statehood, we all know, is a step-by-step process.
There is a section, particularly the Buddhists within Ladakh, who say that statehood means domination of Muslims. And this somehow is causing concern and perhaps maybe a setback to the government even considering the issue of statehood, leave alone granting it.
My point is that all these concerns of all the stakeholders have to be put at the table, transparently, and a solution arrived at, which suits everybody.
The Epic's body is having meetings, and the government has also asked for a draft, which they have submitted. So the process has begun. Or would you say it's like the court, dates after dates after dates?
No, definitely the process has begun, but it's too little too late, I would say. First of all, the 2019 promise not having been even addressed, leave aside, resolved and done. So it's not a consolation that the talks have begun. It is something that should have been done and dusted by now. There is talk, there is discussion, there is still a lack of transparency on the side of the government.
What is your stand on the 6th schedule and statehood? Being independent-minded and someone who has strong views, is your stand different from your husband's and his approach of going on fast as and when?
So there are two questions here. There is one school of thought which says that maybe they are not ready to govern themselves and all of that. But unless you give them the responsibility, how will you know? So definitely Ladakh should have its own legislature. We can self-govern ourselves. My independent viewpoint is this, that it definitely should have a separate identity, and that right now we have got a UT, which is a step forward from a hill council, but eventually a statehood is what it should have, and it should self-govern, because it is only the people of a particular place are invested there. We living in metros may not understand this. So having a cultural identity, a spiritual identity, and therefore a political identity of a statehood is important. Governing yourself so that you can make policies which are good for you and not by whoever. NLG does not have a stake in that place. He is there for a job. Even the bureaucrats who are there, they don't move their families there. It is just seen as a difficult posting somehow to be, done away with. For 1.5 years. And you cannot understand a place in just 1.5 years. Forget writing policies for it. And that is the problem with our entire IAS system itself. That a person from Andhra Pradesh, is looking after Assam. It has to be scrapped, and there has to be, lateral entries of really people who know stuff. There's no doubt that Ladakh deserves to have its own identity as a state eventually.
So you and Sonam are on the same page on this issue?
On the end result, yes. But since you asked that, what would I advise him? So we do have our differences there.
So what would you advise him?
I would not follow Anshan in this way. I would more person with a dialogue mind, and it's more, coming up with a solution and, getting the other person to listen to you and going up with the proposal and getting it done. So I have been telling him that let's look for a way that we can have a meeting. Let's go and, park ourselves in Delhi. What I would have done differently, and I have been advising him only, but I am respectful of his process and approach, because that is the true meaning of Hinduism, plurality.
So what would you have done differently, and what would you have advised him?
I would have come to Delhi. I would have spoken to various experts, intellectuals on 6th schedule, statehood, got myself a meeting with whoever is the decision maker, understood the other side, what is it that's stopping them. I believe more in the dialogue and discussion process.
In fact, one thing which people say about him, and I'm not saying it goes against him, but this is what they say, that Sonam is a solo player and he goes on fast without even consulting anybody.
That I would not agree at all, because all the fast that he did was decided by the apex body, by the leaders, and it was never something he undertook by himself.
But is he a solo player?
I think he's quite democratic and takes people along. He has strong viewpoint on matters, but I think I have seen him patiently explain to people and bring them to see his point of view.
Has his rigidity cost him?
I don't know if it is rigidity or believing in a cause.
At a political level, how do you see the role of the Congress? Initially, they supported him and then they backed off.
I am very naive about politics. Yes, various heads of various parties have openly supported Sonam, and they continue to do it. But I have not really applied my mind to analyze the politics of it.
What about the BJP? Because at one time, he was, if you will allow me to use the word, BJP's poster boy. And later, this falling through happened. What do you think went wrong and when? Because he did welcome, he was one of the few who welcomed the scrapping of Article 370.
Yes, 2014 onwards, if you see, he is BJP's, you could say, poster boy, because, but before that, there were other parties at the helm, and he used to get awards even at that time under various governments. So I think he can be any government's poster boy, and he has been that way, because the idea is no interest in power or no interest in position, but to work selflessly at the grassroots level.
So why did the parting of ways happen?
I don't think even today there is a parting of ways.
He's in jail.
Yes, it suits them today. Politics is a game for lambi race ke ghode. When he started showing them the mirror that you have betrayed the people of Ladakh, and he was doing it for their own good. He was trying to tell them that please heed to the demands of the people. We played our cards open, I think. But they have maybe something up their sleeve, that they are not saying that why they don't want to fulfill their promise of sixth schedule and statehood. If there are commercial interests that are pressurizing them, or if there are other issues of demographic, changes and so on, that can be addressed. Sonam is not anti-development. Sixth schedule is not anti-development. It is about mindful development. The reason why he is their poster boy is because all the words that they were, schemes that they were floating, like be it, Make in India or Startup India or Carbon Neutral Ladakh, these are the very philosophies that our school and university live by. We tell our students that you have to become innovators, entrepreneurs. But later we found that they were just catchwords without understanding the deeper meaning of it. It was to sell a certain project. When we started telling them that your catchwords are not having the execution, prowess, and they need this, and that's where instead of taking it as a positive feedback, it may be hurt their egos. And the final nail in the coffin was the sixth schedule under which land is protected. And maybe they had plans of, land use which they could have unlimited access to.
So what do you think was the government's game plan?
I think short-sightedness, just focused on the next 5 years, or the next election to, generate wealth, the lack of foresight and the lack of long-term planning, which is something that came as a shock.
About your statement that Sonam had the foresight to see and did not want Ladakh to be another Aravalli.
If the sixth schedule is not done, if protection is not given, then just as they have come up with this ridiculous idea that anything under 100 meters is not Aravallis, so they can just come up and say that this does not qualify as a glacier, or here mining can be done, or here photovoltaics can be done. So instead of realizing 10 years later that we have done this mistake, and we can't take Ladakh lightly. The glaciers of Ladakh feed the whole of Indo-Gangetic Plains, the north of India. So what we are asking is just this, that people's representation should be there. Development should have experts who know the terrain, and do it in a way that does not have a repercussion or a side effect which is too big to handle.
What about charges of Sonam being anti-national and receiving foreign funding?
So the detention order does not have any solid evidence of anything anti-national. So, okay, we can take this example of having visited Pakistan, for instance. That was the starting point of this Pakistani agent thing. And if it was so true, and if they truly believed in it, why does it not find mention in the detention order? So it was a strategy to, on one hand, create a smokescreen of falsehood without any evidence, and on the other hand, there are these truncated videos where Sonam is trying to make a point, or if he's trying to use rhetoric, you're coming to a point, but you don't allow that to happen, and you take it in between out of context. So that is the claim and the allegation about being anti-national, but his work proves otherwise, be it the videos that he made about China, bullet ka jawab, wallet say, not buying Chinese goods, or making shelters for the Indian army, so that soldiers can be safe. What kind of anti-national does all this?
Foreign funding?
There is no foreign funding to Hayal because we do not have an FCRA license. So what we have got are not donations, but these are service agreements. For research, we were paid. So it is like an income. It is not a donation, first of all. And as far as SECMOL is concerned, SECMOL has FCRA. And the reasons for which they have cancelled their FCRA are again very flimsy. The problem is, you can just say whatever and create a thing, and the other person is left proving. And by the time you've proven it, people have forgotten and they're just carrying that impression of foreign funding.
What did Sonam mean when he said Sonam Wangchuk in jail is more trouble than Sonam Wangchuk out of jail? Isn't that a provocative and a kind of defiant statement?
No, it has to be seen in which context it was made. So for about 6 months prior to his arrest, there were rumors that he will be arrested. So at one point, he told me also that even if they take me in jail, it will not be that they have solved their problems. If they consider me a troublemaker outside, I'll be bigger trouble when I'm inside, because it will awaken, the conscience of people in India. And I see that happen.
Isn't that a veiled threat?
It is not, because I think it is a prediction, and the prediction has come true, because I meet a lot of people who say that we were in favor of this government till this wrong was done to Sonam. And I think this party in power at the center has lost a lot of goodwill after this act that it has done with Sonam. So he was just being humorous about it and predicting.
About the BJP, you have said, tell them not to call themselves Hindu. They are not Hindus.
The two ways I say that it is not the Hinduism that Sri Aurobindo spoke about. One is that Catholicity, that plurality, that allowing each one to express himself, the unity in diversity. Now if there is any diversity is silenced or it is stopped or whatever. This shows that there is some fear behind it, because when you are very secure, you are very okay with discussing with somebody or doing things with somebody opposite to you. It is not the true spirit of Hinduism. The second is that Hinduism, foundationally it is Satya. Our motto is Satyamev Jayate. From Sonam's case, I have seen that they are using fake narratives. They are encouraging their so-called IT cell or whatever. The kind of language that they're using, abusive. They're truncating videos and showing. So, untruth is never Hinduism.
Before I let you go, let me ask you about Sonam's life in jail and yours outside. And let me also ask you to decode what Wangchuk means and what Angmo means.
Yes. So, Wangchuk means Shiva in Tibetan Buddhism, and Angmo or Wangmo means Shakti, the Parvati.
Interesting.
So, that is the...
So, the combination is Shiv Shakti.
Yes.
So, how is this combination of Shiv Shakti handling this crisis? And again, as I said, Sonam's life in jail and yours outside.
We are very complementary in how we do it. If I may say, he does his anshans and he's more of an activist, if you may say so. And I'm more of an institution builder.
So his life in jail and yours outside in the current crisis, how would you describe that or sum it up?
So it is like the divine has done it so that we understand each other's lives, because right now what he is doing it, what I do, deep study and coming up with curriculum and,
And you're doing what he does, which is being out.
Yeah. So and we both had a little lack of understanding of what each one is doing, because and that way we are now understanding the other person's point of view. The commonality of strength and resilience, it continues with me outside and him there. For instance, he was more of an audiovisual person. He did not read books as much, but he's adapted beautifully now.
How tough has it been for you?
Going to Jodhpur first time and being received by the IB there, and they even came with us in the train till the next station, and it was exhausting.
Intimidating?
I am somehow not intimidated. I made friends with them, but it is, and I think people also sense who you are. The car following did get me at some point, because I was getting this feedback from Ladakh rumors that they are also trying to detain me. Those 3 weeks where I was being followed were for me the toughest. I have learned to learn new skills. I am a black belt in karate. I call myself a lifelong learner. So that learning quick, fast, and adapting to situations, I discovered myself. I deepened my faith. Even now, I sometimes get up at 3:30 in the morning and I'm scared about like what will happen. Whenever I wake up with a start, at 3:30 in the morning or 4, then I just sit and offer to the divine and call for help, inculcate, courage. Also, I was a person who trusted everybody blindly.
You don't do that anymore?
I've taken a 180 turn. I have seen so much of hypocrisy and, there's hidden agendas now that it's become 180 degree, that turn. Now, people don't get my trust as a gift. They have to earn it. So this is one big change that I see. I have started to take one day at a time.
On that note, Gitanjali Angmo, I wish you all the best, and I'm sure that next time when we meet, Sonam will be out of jail and we would meet in happier times. Thank you for being here with us, and thank you for this very heartwarming and very, very frank and candid interview.
Thank you so much for having done so much research. You knew everything about everything. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.